community mental health settings and academia before launching the Crawley Clinic in 2007, which has grown to include offices in Hobart, Launceston and Melbourne, with rural outreach around much of Tasmania. With a focus on workforce development, the Crawley Clinic has trained over 70 psychology students, interns and graduates since 2007. More recently, Tess has focused on supporting the wellbeing and burnout prevention of other private practice owners around Australia. Tess was named a Psychologist of the Year finalist in 2019 and 2024 and won the Allied Health Leadership and Management Award in 2024. Please welcome Dr. Tess Crawley.
Were not made to be worn behind a podium. I want to thank all my colleagues who are here today. Oh, I'm going to need the clicker thing. Especially those who have worked with me in the past, because you continue to inspire me every single day. And my two boys who are here today filming for me and just being my able assistants. So thank you both. Before we get started, I've had a bit of a time recently. Those of you with team, we do talk a lot about losing staff members, and this is not usually what we're talking about. So today, I'm taking a moment to remember my dear friend and colleague Shani Duffman, who passed away a few weeks ago, had been a member of my team for a number of years, very dedicated social worker. I don't know how I'm going to find the Zoom link to our team meetings now, because Shani was always there first, and I would get an email saying Shani has joined your meeting. I'm not going to get those emails anymore. Also a reminder that when we're talking about building teams and building our businesses, we're not just talking about psychologists. If we're thinking about what Den was saying about our business model should start from a platform of care, then we do have colleagues who can provide that care in such wonderful, fulfilling ways. And Shani's work really embodied that kind, heart-centered, person-focused care, and she'll be greatly missed. All right, so let's start with our first rule today, is we're not panicking. How many of you are private practice owners? Oh, bless you all, I love you so much. How many of you work in the government sector? Okay, you might need to duck occasionally. We won't blame you, okay, for what we might be talking about in terms of salaries a little bit later. Are anyone working in the school setting? Couple? Okay. All right, good. So when we're looking for, when we're talking about our teams, we really have two compounding variables. And these, look, there are more, but these are the ones that are the most obvious, right? We are in dire straits when it comes to workforce, and I'm sorry, government employees, but you know, let's face it, we are seeing some wild and wacky Western world salaries out there at the moment, almost like Westworld, in fact, salaries out there at the moment. I have heard stories that, I was going to put down my own shameless plug for a minute.
We can start a trend.
Coaching client recently told me of a provisional psychologist she was looking to engage in her practice. How much should I pay her, Tess? She's currently working in the education department, and she's being paid $140,000. I kid you not. I have lost provisional psychologists to government-funded either departments or government-funded NGOs, and they were kind enough to say, Tess, I'm not even going to ask if you can compete with this salary, because they were getting offered more than my senior clinicians. And we're seeing it time and time again, and I know why it happens. So my practice, Crawley Clinic, we have a large government-funded contract that we've had for a long time. So I have been very privileged to have a little bit of backup in terms of knowing that my salaries would be paid, but that doesn't mean I've been able to afford silly salaries. But I do know what KPIs are. And so I know that organisations can be very, very pressured from up above to make sure there are bums on seats, and that's where money can be stolen from Peter to pay Paul, the new psychologist, on $140,000 things are coming. So when we're talking about private practice, we've got all of that fear in our head, right? We've got the fear of where am I going to get these people from, and how the hell am I going to pay them, and how much am I going to pay them, and oh my God, and all the chatter. So I've got a little bit of tomorrow afternoon I'm going to be talking about burnout amongst provisional psychs, and I'm referring to that conversation as talking about the canary in the coal mine, and I think I want to give that little bit of a heads up here as well. One of the things I'll talk about a little bit today is social media and marketing for your private practice. It's not about CCADs, it's about letting your future ideal staff members find you. Let them find you. If they get to know who you are on social media, if they get to know what you're about, if they get to know what your practice's personality is, if they get to know and understand what you stand for. I'll talk a little bit about that a bit later on. Placements, internships, social media. I've got a little book on my website that's it's just a downloadable PDF these days that you can purchase. I wrote that probably, I think it was 2017. I was made aware that I, at that time, was one of the only private practice owners one of very few private practice owners at that time offering placements in private practice. Like, people were struggling to understand, what do you get them to do? What do they do? And now, of course, the landscape has changed so much that we're all employing provisional psychs because we're desperate, right? We can't. And how wonderful are they? You know, for years, for decades, we've underestimated the skills of our great provisional psychs. So internships, placements. When? Now, people come to me and say, okay, I've decided I want to grow my team because I've got too many referrals and I can't say no to anybody, and I'm seeing 10 clients a day and I can't possibly see any more, so I'm really, really badly needing somebody. How do I do that? What I want you to do first, before you get to that stage, is have a little bit of a preemptive think, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, but you really need to know what you want your organisational structure to look like. What's a director? What comes under the director? We might have clinical lead. What comes under that? You might have senior clinicians. What comes under that, and that, and that, and that, and that, until you get down to therapy assistants. You might never fill all of those roles, but you need to know what they're going to look like and what the fee structure would be that would hang off each of those roles. So you can start to map it out so that when someone presents themselves as wanting to come work with you, you can see where they might fit. And that will help guide what fee you might be able to charge for them, and of course, what you might pay them, whether or not you can afford it. You need to reflect really honestly on what you can offer. Can you provide supervision? Can you provide some in-house training? Do you have colleagues that perhaps together you can provide each other's teams some training, build a network? Can you provide diverse client presentations? Can you help them fill their own goals? Like, if they're really interested in assessment, can you provide that? So you want to start thinking a bit creatively around what you're offering beyond the dollars, because if you're only thinking about the dollars, you really do risk sending yourself broke because you're trying to compete with what the government's doing. You just can't do that. Number one rule when it comes to recruiting is always trust your gut, trust your instincts. I often say to people, ignore the CV, because if they're a qualified mental health professional, they can do the damn job, we know that. So interview them, and do you feel that they fit the culture you're trying to build in your team? I know that there's a lot of business speak that says the exact opposite, but I think in our caring profession, it's really important that we listen to our instincts on this stuff, because would you trust this person with your child as a client? Would you trust this person with your elderly grandmother? Would you trust this person with your own clients? Like, we have to start thinking about that, because in private practice land, we're often, we don't all have teams the size of Rachel's, right? We're often talking about a small number of people that are representing the brand that we're trying to build. So don't rush. Okay. People panic because I'm always talking about marketing and social media, and I've got a little you don't make me do a test, please. I really don't. And they're hiding behind their glass of water. So, last month, I don't know anymore, recently, I ran a 4-week course on storytelling in private practice. I'm also an author. So I ran a 4-week course on storytelling in private practice and how we can engage emotionally, build an emotional bridge between ourselves, our practices, our businesses, and the people who are consuming our content on social media. So, how interesting is it to hear the story of why you decided to become a psychologist? How fascinating it can be to understand what it's like in a first session ever for someone who's never had therapy before. What about the journey that led you to change tracks from being a primary school teacher, from being an accountant, from being a whatever it might have been that you thought you were going to be, and then psychology grabbed you? What was that about? So when we're telling stories, we're engaging an emotional connection with people. If we start thinking about social media as something like that, a tool for us to do that, we're building brand awareness, we're building trust, and all of that feeds into our ability to more easily recruit staff. Oh, I thought I'd fixed all the funky settings. Never mind. Build it and they will come. So if we build this little social media presence, everybody says, I hate it, I hate social media. I know you do. It's okay, I get it, I really, really do. I'm very sorry this is the world we live in. It's the world we live in though. And so if you can just pretend that you love it, if you can just pretend that nobody out there is actually judging you, because the truth is they're not. So nobody's actually saying, okay, Emma Rose Parsons, where are you? I'm going to watch every single post that you put, and I'm only going to watch your post, and I'm going to compare today's post with yesterday's post. Oh, it's not as good as last week. I'm sorry, Emma Rose. Nobody's doing that. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we all suck when we start. Everybody sucks when they start on social media. So play. Think of it as play. Don't think of it as marketing. Think of it as storytelling. Think of it as fun. Think of it as communication. You do this every single day with a client. You explain fight or flight to them. You explain the amygdala. You tell them the limits to confidentiality. You do it every damn day. So there's nothing stopping you to translate that information into a meaningful way with social media and do it consistently. Doesn't matter how frequently, just consistently. Plod along a little bit every week, just a little bit, education, awareness, stories. That's what you're doing, you're telling stories. And what that does is it feeds information to a growing audience that find you engaging. It's not a competition, because there's only one of you, so you've already won. You win. There's only one of you. So when you've got your social media out there and you're telling your stories about how you function, how you work, what it's like to be a client of yours, all these stories, you'll find that there'll be clients or potential clients that really quite resonate with you. And there'll be referrers who find that you're quite engaging and interesting. And most importantly for this conversation, future staff will start following you, feeling you're a bit cool, feeling you're kind of a nerd like them, whatever it might be. So this is a simple premise. Just let them get to know you. And this is the easiest way. It's free. It's global. I've had a staff member of mine who's now gone into her own forensic practice, but still consults back to us. She approached me from the UK and said, I'm moving to Tasmania, can I come work with you? I've been following you for years, I really like your stuff. Sure, I said, and then COVID happened. And then about, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years later, it happened. And she came and worked with my team in Launceston, of all places. And she's still a really valued sort of auxiliary member of my team now. So let them get to know, like, and trust you, and you'll be surprised. Where's Holly? Hello, Holly. Sorry to pick on your love, I really am going to do it anyway. Is that okay? Thank you, darling. Okay, so when Holly started working with me, she didn't have any social media accounts, and I said, well, you better. And she said, okay. And so she started posting all sorts of things, created a Facebook account and posted koalas on her back doorstep, I remember that one. But also just started being really brave and fronting up every day, just telling a little story to camera on her social media. It was like within months, Holly, of 0 to within months, she had people asking if they could come work with her. So, you know, I don't make this stuff up. All right, staff retention. The first step to staff retention is let go of your scarcity fears. Let go of your fears driven around there's not enough. There's not enough clients, there's not enough money, there's not enough clinicians. We know there's not really enough clinicians, but we're trying to sort of pretend that that's not real for just a minute. Because if we let scarcity win, we offer too much money, we give in to unrealistic demands, we risk burnout, like managerial burnout, and we ultimately risk going broke. So if we're giving into these scarcity fears and not taking a step back from that and saying, hang on, what if I just choose to believe, just for today, that there's enough of everything I need, I've just got to find it or let it find me. So we start from an abundance point of view, because then what you do is in interview when someone says something ridiculous like I want $140,000 and but the practice down the road said, and then you get a little bit more confident to say, well, that sounds like a fantastic offer. I encourage you to accept that if that's what they're saying, because we don't know if they're making it up or not, do we? All right. How do we keep our staff? We keep our staff by nurturing them in lots of ways. Okay, so I'm always jealous of people like Rachel who have all their team in the one more or less location. I've got team in Melbourne, Hobart, Launceston. So I work from home because it's just easier. It's like, you know, how do I have a favourite kid by going into the office with one of them? No, I'm not going to do that. So I don't have an awful lot of time with my team because they're spread. I've got rurally located clinicians as well who work for me. So how do we keep our staff engaged? How do we keep our clinicians engaged and feeling part of a whole one? So we have regular supervision, whole of team supervision, regular whole of team meetings. And ad hoc support, whatever they need, we make sure that they can have that when it comes to support. So peer-to-peer support, formal supervision. We outsource primary supervision so that we're not getting those blurred boundaries around the managerial lines of bossiness and that, you know, unconditional positive regard for supervision, so we keep that clear. We listen to our team where we can. We can't always say yes, but when our team asks, can we get some training in X, Y, Z, we look at, well, who do I know who could run that training, or what resource do we have, financial or otherwise, to provide that training, or is it something that I can provide in-house? And so on. So how are we supporting their self-care, supporting their professional development, and also listening and trying to hear for their personal development? Self-care in particular, I know Dan was talking about this too, part of the code, we really have to be having our ears switched on to that. I cannot tell you, Paul, you know, one of the things we see in our profession, where's Paul? Hi! One of the things we see in our profession is overwork. So overwork of clinicians expected to see, especially our junior, we eat our young. You know, our provisional sites, I've had provisional sites work with me who've come from workplaces expecting them to see 7 clients a day, 5 days a week, write your notes from home, you'll also work half day Saturday, no, that's not optional. So, you know, when we are looking for staff, we take into account what have they come from, what are their expectations, where are the abuses in the industry, and how are we countering that in our own staff practices and culture? And is that more important to our clinicians than just a higher dollar value that somebody else might be paying, so they have to see 7 clients a day, otherwise their boss can't afford to pay them. So we don't pay, we pay a bit above award, we don't pay as much as the government award, we're somewhere in the middle, we're an employee-only model, but we're just sort of opening the door a little bit to subcontracting for the right senior level person who might have a specific skill set that we can't otherwise get. None of this needs to cost more money. Am I running out of time? I've got down my hand. Have an honest conversation with yourself about what you're contributing to burnout and loss of staff. So when you think about retention, not only how can I keep my staff, but how can I avoid losing my staff? So this is a conversation with yourself that you need to have fairly often, and I think it feeds back into what Paul was saying as well, really understanding what's going on for you and your team. Very quickly, everybody leaves except you. Rachel said she used to cry. I used to cry. It's awful. All the rejection, abandonment. Paul mentioned abandonment. We all get that awful feeling when someone says they don't want to play with us anymore and it's not fair. They will all leave, get used to it, I promise they will. You're the only one who's going to be there at the end of the day unless you sell your business. So if we embrace the fact that they're going to leave, and we plan for that, we expect it, we anticipate, if you're lucky, you're going to get a couple of years. Allow for open discussion of their own private practice goals. What kind of business coach would I be if I didn't let my staff open their own businesses? But encourage plenty of notice. I've had staff give me 6 months' notice that they're intending to open their own private practice, and I have helped them as much as I can. Okay. Because that's about culture of openness and conversation, and I regularly, like Rachel was talking about exit planning, I regularly talk about when you're ready for a new adventure or your own business or whatever it might be, come talk to us. Happy to help in whatever way I can. Graceful. So don't take it personally. Don't try to compete on salary. Don't try to convince people to stay once they're already 1 foot out the door. That is an awful mistake to make. Focus on the ethics and the professional behaviour when they're leaving. So not just, well, my contract says 4 weeks notice. What about your clients? Let's be really open in our conversations about when you're thinking about leaving is the time for us to start planning your exit. Because we need to make sure that your clients are cared for. Just want to go back quickly. The goal is ambassadorship. When people leave, if you treat them well as they're leaving, you're actually going to get them speaking well of their time with you. You're going to get them encouraging their friends to come and apply and work with you. And you never know how that's going to play out for you really, really well in the future. This was a little bit of a summary in case we had time, which we didn't. But what I wanted to say is, if I can help, please give me a shout.
Shameless plugs.
Shameless plug. If you're here, which you are, and you would like, I have a pre-recorded course on this exact stuff, and I'd be more than happy to gift each of you that. It's worth about $500, so please feel free to send me an email. You can contact me via my website. So if you think that's something that you'd like a little bit more in your jammies with a cup of tea, absorb it all in your own time, then feel free to get in touch, and I'm happy to make that happen for you. Thank you for having me. And choose.